Our first presenter tonight is Bill Meredith of Leadville Designs. Bill has been at the kit making business since I think at least 1997. Was involved with Cimarron Works with Bob Steers and Doug Junda, Darrell Poole on the early 2000 up through 2010. And then he and Junda and Bob Steers created Leadville Shops, which produced a lot of those very nice laser cut early boxcars, etc. Then in 2018, Bill left and has formed his own company, Leadville Designs. It features laser cut wood kits, and he also does a considerable amount of custom building. So he's going to tell us what he's up to now and perhaps answer some questions. So Bill, it's all yours.
So my name is Bill Meredith. I am Leadville Designs, and I'm going to give just a brief presentation on what is it I'm up to and what we're doing. So we'll start. So what we're going to talk about is just give you guys an update, a general design philosophy, a bit about the wood rolling stock kits, the future releases in the co-op program. We'll get into that, the trucks, and then the locomotive program, new drive systems, custom building, lettering, and then we'll have some questions. So feel free to fire away if anything sort of strikes your fancy, or you want to dig a little bit, do a bit of a dive into any of the topics. So yeah, a little bit update. I am running behind, and I'm catching up as fast as I can. It is just me, and the reasons, the main reason why I'm running behind is that the etchings, several $1,000s worth, a year's worth of etchings, got lost by FedEx on the way from Scotland, which set me back about 6 weeks. And it's kind of the shall we say, you can't get around it. So I had to get them in place so I could finalize on the designs. At any rate, the designs are coming on really well. We're well into the cutting season. I should have most of the orders caught up within the next 2 to 4 weeks. And there's a potential for a move this summer to a larger facility. So I'll let people know about that, but I'm going to make it as smooth as possible. So thanks to everybody for the support and understanding, especially the last few months with the delays. It's never happened before, and I've been working with these guys for 25 years, and hopefully it'll never happen again. A bit about the design philosophy, or my how I like to approach things, and everything. Nothing ever comes out as planned. So there's always some new ideas being put forward, and I like to sort of stretch the envelope with each new product or kit, and it's kind of fun. It keeps things interesting as we look at new technologies and new materials to try and come out with products that are as accurate as possible, as enjoyable to assemble as possible. And which kind of goes to the ease of assembly, and that will yield the greatest enjoyment and accuracy and overall realism. So I think if we can sort of wrap all those things in and just keep pushing forward, never sort of settle, that it makes it better for everybody. It keeps everybody interested and excited, and it makes my life a little more interesting. But it does sometimes it does sort of stretch out the turnaround time for new products, which I'm okay with. I'd like to be able to deliver everything last week, but sometimes, for example, I'm coming out with a kit for the East Broadtop 3-bay hopper in HO, and it's all brass. And when the first prototype sample came in, I sort of, you got to build it and play with it, and all of a sudden you start looking at it, you go, wait a minute, we can do this better and easier. And by doing it that way, it'll be easier to assemble, because it is, it's kind of, it's all metal and can be kind of tricky to assemble, but with integrated fold lines and the castings, hopefully people will be able to assemble it quicker and get increased detail And when you kind of do that, then you feel a little bit better about your evening, and it makes everybody happier. So we like to basically challenge the status quo and keep looking forward and keep trying out new technologies and new processes and new materials. So that's kind of where that's what it's the kind of stuff that keeps me going and keeps me up at night. The wood kits. So the wood kits are predominantly laser cut plywoods, basswood. Now we're looking at laser boards and MDF. The etch details are the first thing to get done because they have the longest lead time, but the degree of precision in them is exquisite. So in the past, they've been mostly brass, but with the advent of the Pullman cars, I've been moving more into nickel silver because it's a harder metal. There's quite a bit of nickel silver etchings in the upcoming Inglesby kit, the drop bottom gone, the Crystal River, and I'd use a lot of nickel silver with in the locomotive parts. The other components are the 3D parts, so the 3D printed parts. So they're designed in a parametric CAD, and then they're either printed in an ABS, which is actually it's a very nice material. There's different grades that you can get, but the stuff I like to use is fairly resilient. It takes paint very well, and the detail is absolutely exquisite. So that sort of completes, along with your San Juan / Grant Line injected molded detail parts. Some of the other parts, for example, in the East Broadtop hopper, the parts are 3D, but they're printed in jeweler's wax and would be burned out directly into brass. There's value in doing that because you're not restricted by the physical constraints of a two-part mold. I don't even know how to describe that. But when you have a two-part mold, the mold basically has to come apart, has to be able to pull apart without being locked into the part. But when you print the wax pattern, you don't have to worry about that because there's no mold. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to dive into that. So it also includes brass wires and decals. All the decals are designed in-house. I print some, and other ones I farm out. The color ones I farm out to PDC. They do a great job. And then there's the instructions. So that's kind of what your wood kit looks like. There's always several iterations before it gets goes into production. They get test assembled to make sure everything fits. Everything has to fit exactly right because it's if it doesn't, then you're not going to be happy. You're just not going to be happy. It sort of harkens back because a lesson I learned, gotta be 40 years ago. I bought you guys remember this too. It was a Tamalco Real Grand Jackson and Sharp passenger car kit that Swede had done. And it was basically a box of sticks, some really nice brass castings. And I remember following the instructions, which was basically an 8.5 by 11 and printed on one side. And I got about halfway through the instructions where Swede had put in, "Oh, your car's a foot too wide. You have to narrow it." And that's as far as I got. I think I still have that box of sticks around somewhere. So I just remember that feeling of dismay, which kind of haunted me for 40 years. Anyhow, those are the wood kits. Those are the wood kits. Of which I should say there's I think to date, with everything, there's been about over 100 products in the line in the last 4 years. So it's kind of hard to manage sometimes. So what I will tell people is, just because you don't see a kit that was produced, it's probably still available. I just can't. I mean, I just sort of dropped it from the line from a management standpoint. But I keep the raw materials in inventory. I typically don't keep very many kits in inventory because there's just too many kits to track. So people make an order for 1 week, a month. I go in and I cut the orders and I ship them out. So if it's not there, just ask. It's probably not a big deal to go. The drawings are still there, and everything like the 3D stuff. I do all the 3D printing, and I do all the laser cutting. I do the decals. So it's just a matter of fitting it into the schedule. So upcoming releases. This is what was sort of delayed by the, shall I say, the etchings, which are in-house now. And what I will say is every time I do a set of etchings, I kind of try some different things. I push the envelopes, try some different materials, some different line thicknesses to get just to see what I can get away with. The guys I work with are amazing. This is all they do. All they do is etch metals, and they have an incredible array of materials to choose from. So coming out this month, the 4000 series boxcars. If for those who were at the symposium, I had some S-scale versions there. The 4000s are 1913 version and the 1926 version, the same kit. So in each kit, you get a choice of roofs. You get a wood roof and a Murphy steel roof, and you get the appropriate roof walk to go with that. And you get different doors for both of those versions. The 1926 version kind of looks like a 3000 series boxcar. It's just sits a little bit lower, but it's got that kind of that bracketed door hardware, and of course a Murphy roof, and it has lettering for the 1913 and the 1926 to 1940 versions, and I threw in black lettering for the maintenance away. I think it's a block car 4466, and there's another one. At any rate, you get the 13 lettering, the 26 lettering, and the maintenance away black lettering. So that's the 4000 boxcar. There's two MOWs, the 4410 and the 4268. They're also they were also out at the show. The HO scale versions I just finished cutting today. All the parts are printed, the decals are printed. Just a matter of bagging and boxing. Now the Crystal River, for those familiar with it, it's you can see it in the upper right. It's a pretty funky car. It has a really elaborate mechanism under the floor for closing the doors. And what John Robinson told me was that the cars were designed so that the engineer could activate the doors while the train was moving through some air connection. And apparently they were doing it at 40 miles an hour. Would have been an interesting sight to see. Very interesting sight to see. So that car was also run on the DNRG in, well, I think that probably the 20s. So it's got lettering for that. That will be coming out again in June in the 3 scales. Same time frame for the CNS Type 1 coal. Now it's got hardware for the St. Charles version, which is 1898, as well as the Colorado and Southern built versions of 1902, with lettering for both those versions, and it comes with cast brass bolsters for a little bit of weight near the rails. Similar, the CNS Type 1 flat car, same time frame, same brass bolsters. In HO, I should mention, I've also got trucks that are coming out next month. The CNS 4-foot arch bar, it's like an ACNF, kind of looks like a Rio Grande 3'7", but it's a 4-foot wheelbase, if you can sort of picture that. So cinder cars, same deal, coming out in June. Yeah, there's a picture, the drawing up in the upper right. I didn't put it there. I should have put a drawing, but the East Broad Top hoppers, the second iteration of the draft samples of the brass and nickel silver should be in shop in about 3 weeks. I sent the artwork out last week and it's paid for, and they're usually pretty good about that. So I think that's it. I thought there was another car that I'm working on, which is of little interest probably to you guys, but it's a P-48 CPR Angus Shops caboose, which is standard gauge Canadian Pacific for one of my customers. But they like I find a lot of people they get into the co-op program and they're just so happy to have it that they're quite willing to share it and maybe offset some of the costs. So that's a steel modern caboose. I think it was probably built in the 70s. Um, I'm not that into standard gauge or CPR, although I like the CPR. So, but so that'll be kind of fun. Trucks. So if when I do a kit, and I want to make sure that people can finish it accurately. So if there's no if somebody else isn't making the trucks that are suitable for the car, then I'll make them in brass. In the past, I did the Pullman cars, the Pullman 6-foot wheelbase trucks, and they were kind of special because I had Northwest Shortline produce 30-inch, not 30-inch gauge, but 30-inch wheels and 3-foot gauge trucks for the 6-foot wheelbase Pullman cars. So that was an expensive proposition, but it was a nice touch. So thus far, the in H0N3, the CNS 4-foot rigids, which are kind of like they were under the Florence and Cripple Creek and fairly ubiquitous 4-foot trucks. Coming up in the next few weeks, I got the castings in-house, the DSP swing beams, the new truck design. I evolved the design so that there's an etched plate that holds the swiveling side frames into the bolster, so it does equalization. At the same time, the etched plate holds the brake beams in the proper positions outside of the wheels, and there's an integrated brake lever which you just twist. So it just snaps. The plate snaps over some cast lips on the bolster. So in theory, you could get your trucks running and assembled within the hour with full detail. There was I had done the Southern Pacific 4-foot Tealsons, and there were some comments that they didn't equalize. So to anybody who was not particularly pleased, I'm more than happy to send them a new set with the equalization. It also helped to get some information from Andrew Brandon on how the real ones were assembled. So we did the Pullman truck, as well as I did a 5'6" passenger truck for the CNS, because I needed it for the baggage car that was done last year or the year before. Anyhow, I tried to put full. I try to do my best when it comes to the pattern work, and we do the etchings. I try to make everything with clevises so that people have the opportunity to put as much detail on their trucks as they want, as their heart's desire. So those are the trucks. Co-op program. A lot of the kits that I've done were not of my. Had nothing to do. Had very little to do with me. But people reaching out and saying, could I talk you into doing, for example, the Dolly Varden Mine car, or the Rio Grande 9600 pipe gun, or even the Pullman cars? These were people that reached out and they wanted to help out. So I said, well, okay, you help offset the cost of my time that goes into designing these things. And if they sell well, then I'm more than happy to send you to send some cash back to you. And it's really I did it basically because so many people were asking for stuff, and the program turned out real well, and everybody's been happy with because they get the cars they want, and at the very least they get the cars they want. At the very most, they get the cars they want, and they get some money back. So it's worked out real well. Now sometimes I'm at their whim. They want something really obscure, and I say, well, you're going to have to help me with the drawings or help me with the information on this. It's been a really good exercise, and it's been really well received. So that's the co-op program. So if there's a car or anything that you want, just reach out to me and we'll fit it in. I've got projects coming up the pipe probably for the next 2 years lined up just based on this program. Locomotives. So what I will draw people's attentions to are the images in the lower left. Those in the very far left is it's kind of hard to tell, but those are etched nickel, silver, and brass sheets that have surface detail on them, and then they were cut with a laser. The components were cut out with a laser. So the locomotives I'm working on now, which is Stream of Masons and North Pacific Coast number 21 in 3 scales, as well as the Colorado Midland P48 280, are all designed in shop. The castings are pretty much designed in CAD, again in shop. Now in the second from the left, you'll see the blue images above. That's the gearbox for the 0-3 Mason, and it was printed. The components were printed in jeweler's wax and then burnt out. And this is a really exciting development in the hobby between that and the laser cut metals that enable us to do some really outrageous things. Now, in the upper right, you'll see that's the artwork for the initial set of drawings. It's been revised several times since for the frames, for the Masons, and I think those are just the Masons. So you'll see them in, I think, 3 scales. So HO in the upper left, along with the rods. The degree of precision that one is capable of doing it this way is phenomenal, and the curve for the cut is maybe 0.003 of an inch, which is pretty much where your tolerances are anyway. So the small run of locomotives, I'm doing the design work. I've got people like Dave Fletcher, who's been wonderful, and I've got the full set of Mason drawings that I bought from Art himself 40 years ago. The Colorado Midland locomotive, I got gobs of help from Art Hundhausen. So the NPC 21 was actually is more of a co-op program. A customer reached out and said, could I do that? And he also wanted the Bully Boy. And so there's a whole subculture of California narrow gauge types out there that are crying for these things. The gearboxes, I should say, they're all designed in-house. I had Northwest Shortline custom cut the gears as well as the driver tires, and the gearboxes are all ball bearing. They all have integrated ball bearings, and the drives are all Swiss coreless motors. So the locomotives come with whatever you want, whatever the customer wants. So however they want it finished. They want a DCC, they want the full paint job, then that's what they're going to get. So that's the locomotive program to date. I am looking at doing. I've got some calls for people who have asked for we'll call it a C16 mechanism and frame that they can put underneath their Chemtron locomotives. They built their Chemtron. It's near and dear to their heart. They probably built it 40, 50 years ago, but of course it doesn't run especially well, and they like to see them run. So we're working in that general direction. I'm pretty flexible with this kind of stuff. Drive system. This is something that stemmed from some custom work. Working on the West Side C16, of which I think there has to be 2,000 of them out there. Beautiful little model when you think about it. 1970s technology when it comes to drive. Not much detail under the tender, but there's lots. The cab or the boiler details is quite nice. It's just as cute as a Bug's Ear. That locomotive was one of my favorite locomotives when I was a teenager. But trying to get them to run, they have a 25-to-1 or 24-to-1 drive with worm, and the motor is about the I don't know, size of a golf ball. It consumes the entire cab. So I opted to come up with a design that you see pictured here. Now that's the first version. I've done several iterations since. In fact, I'm printing some right now in an engineering resin. The gears are laser cut brass, and they're cut from a sheet of, I think, you say 40 thousandths. I needed something that was substantially thin but extremely precise. So with the 2.4 to 1 integrated gear reduction and the existing worm gear and axle gear, you're going to get a 57 to 1 reduction going on to the drivers. So that's more than adequate. The motor is a coreless. It's an 8x16, and it's surprisingly powerful and smooth. So that's something I've been looking at. Other people have reached out to me about doing a similar setup for the T12, which I was told was also like that. And I'm sure there's plenty of guys in HO, because I really don't think we're going to see anything more from Blackstone. But those small locomotives, the small inside frame locomotives that came out in the 70s are probably crying for a better drive. You know, if you go back to the late 80s, they had the articles in the Gazette from the Slim Gauge Guild, and they were using fall hobbers with 3.45 to 1 offset shaft, and the motor was sticking way out the back, and it's a great, these wonderful components, but having the motor stick way out the back like that was, and they'd cover it with caboose doors or whatever, and I'm sure they ran magnificently, but we could probably do a little bit better than that using newer technologies. So the idea, one last note on the idea of this setup is that the screws that you see there, they fit exactly into the existing frame of the West Side C16. So it should be, you take the boiler off and you unscrew the motor, the screws in and everything. You just hook up the wires and you're off and running. Coming to the end, I do quite a bit of custom building. This is just a few of the things that I've done. It's 0-3. What you see is 0-3, and then you got N scale on the bottom. Everything is designed from the rails up. It's whatever you want. If you're interested, just reach out to me. If there's something you want, we'll fit you into the sked. Second to last, like I said once, all the lettering is designed in-house. Some of it I print myself. Some of it I farm out to people like Bill Brillinger at PDC. He and I have a good system now. So if you have some decals that you're looking for, reach out to me. I've done probably 100 sets that go back to the Cimarron Works and Leadville shops, and just covering a whole gamut of Colorado narrow gauge, as well as other things like it was for John Waite, who was Tweetsy stuff, and there's some White Bass stuff thrown in there. It's actually kind of fun doing that stuff. It's, if you get good drawings, it's very, can be very relaxing. So that's it. I hope I didn't put too many people to sleep. I'm always here. Reach out, send an email. I'm leadvilledesigns@gmail.com, or go to the webpage at www.leadvilledesigns.com. More than happy to chew the fat with whoever, and we can talk trains, or we can talk weather, whatever floats your boat.
Okay, thank you, Bill. This is Pete Smith. I'm going to field some questions from the chat box. There's just a couple. I could see a C16 frame being useful for other locos. Most all the CNS 280s share almost identical wheelbases. Perhaps a 3D printed boiler?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I have. So, yeah, you could absolutely. So, I'm not sure what scale that was, but I have already got all the artwork for Baldwin and Grant class 60s in HO and S scale. and it's not too much just to scale it up. I've done the etching in nickel silver. So I am planning on doing a working mechanism. I also picked up when John Pilling was still producing, I picked up about 10 sets of O scale drivers from him.
Thank you very much, Bill. It was a great presentation.